out of this world or out of one's mind now in the Mike Smith Show?
And welcome to this week's A Particular Passion. You may have got a clue from some rather unusual figures in our audience that we have a fairly unusual passion this week. Or is it that unusual? There do seem to be an increasing amount of people interested in science fiction. That's our A Particular Passion for this week. Let's start off right over here with Dr. Cornell, a GP. To science fiction on television. Do you remember those Saturday afternoons after Dixon of Docks Green? Late William Hartnell there, the first Doctor Who, and of course that was on before Dixon of Dock Green, wasn't it? Not after Dixon of Dock Green. I mean, I didn't know because I'm far too young to realise these things, but Doctor Who enthusiasts will be able to see more because that first series is due to be shown soon on BSB's Galaxy channel. Now we have some great Doctor Who fans here in the audience. We also have a rather tasty-looking Cyberman who's keeping guard over them. And with me here is Jeremy Bentham, one of the founders of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society and author of Doctor Who The Early Years, and also David Howe, who's a major fan and a collector. I'll go to Jeremy first of all. As a founder member of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society and a former editor of the magazine, the official magazine, what age were you when Doctor Who started?
Oh, I was 7.
So you were one of the very earliest converts?
Yes, the very first one. People often ask, why did you get into Doctor Who as opposed to any other programme? And it's an answer I've tried to come up with a dozen times. I think it's just a combination of being the right age at the right time in the right era. We were the first of the television generation, the first of the people who would be whose ideas would be influenced by television. The 60s was also the time when technology was breaking out, when gadgetry was coming so much to the fore. And of course, being about 7 years old and in the middle of that, Doctor Who was really a kind of encapsulation of that into a television series.
What was it that hooked you? Did you believe any of it?
I don't know. I suppose at the time it must have been, because I think certainly the early shows frightened me, and that was obviously an integral part of getting hooked on the programme. It did terrify you. Why you then came back the following week to get frightened again is another question probably better people than I would try to answer. But it had that effect. You were never sure what you were going to see. And during the time when your disbelief is suspended, watching the series, yes, it did terrify you. And yes, it thrilled.
Does the passion for it continue within your body today?
In a varied form. I still think it's one of the most inventive shows that is done anywhere in the world. It's one of the few shows which...
Well, even with all those cardboard sets and things they have, I mean,
Well, the cardboard set is really a hangover from the time when people could genuinely make jokes about the series in that fashion. There's so much more that's been done to it in terms of how it's made now, which it is, in all essence, a drama series, just as any other drama series put out on television is. And so the cardboard set is no more cardboard than any other production. People don't make those comments about Sherlock Holmes, and yet that probably has exactly the same production values, in some cases a greater emphasis of production values than Sherlock Holmes boasts.
David, alongside you, former member of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. I won't go into why you're no longer a member, but basically you feel you've gone on to other things now. You've matured.
Well, matured, if you can use that word, yes.
Well, we could say mature, but then look at the collection. This collection here, which you've assembled and brought along, which would have a value to it.
It would, yes.
We're looking at things here which are no longer made, the Dalek toys and so on. What sort of value would this type of toy have now?
Well, that particular one's one of the Daleks from the 60s when they were first issued. And really you could pay anything £70 to £100 for one of those in good condition. If it's sort of exceptional condition, you could even pay more. Very much the value of any single piece of merchandise is dictated obviously by how rare it is, i.e. how many there are about, but also on how much somebody else wants it. I mean, I could say this is worth £500, but if there's nobody that's actually prepared to pay me £500 for it, it's so difficult to put a value on something.
It's an anti-Dalek fluid neutraliser.
Yeah, water pistol,
couldn't see what it is. I mean, to be honest, somebody would say this is a load of plastic and tin junk, and yet you're putting a value on it, and you quite plainly have a passion for collecting it. What is it that pulled you into it?
That is a very difficult question to answer. It's exactly the same as the good doctor was saying earlier. It's a hobby. It's something that interests a particular person. Some people will collect stamps and they will pay a vast fortune for a little piece of paper, 1 inch by 1 inch, that's actually been removed from an envelope.
Is it to remind you of your childhood?
Not at all, no, not at all. I collect Doctor Who merchandise as a whole. What we've got here is a cross-section. We've got the Dalek toys, there's records, there's underpants.
Is that a TARDIS in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me?
There's sweets, books, a radio here. It covers everything. Obviously, some people would only collect the Daleks because they're the Clockwork toys. Some people would only collect the books.
But you see, you can't even use your fluid neutraliser, can you? Because you've got to keep it wrapped up in there to keep it in mint condition.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a great shame, isn't it? I mean, you can't actually play with these things.
Why would you want to?
Well, I thought that's why they sold them in the first place. I think we'll end it just there. Listen, thank you for joining us so far. I don't want to finish on Doctor Who just there, because come across here, I want you to meet someone who's rather famous from the land of Doctor Who. Now, down here we have a man called John Leeson. This is John.
Good afternoon, Mike Smith. Are you the new doctor?
This is John up here, actually, because John was the voice behind K9.
So they tell me.
Now, how many years were you K9 for?
I was K9 for 2 years out of 3. David Brierley took over for the middle season. So
It always struck me as rather strange with the poor old actors in Doctor Who. They could be the greatest actors in the world, but they're wrapped up in cling film and all sorts of other things. You don't know who they are behind them, and you were just a voice.
that's right, yes. At least I didn't have to get into the K9 module.
Could have been difficult.
It would have been, yes, indeed.
How did you actually, dare I say, get into the character of K9?
Well, we rehearsed in a very interesting way, because I ran around in the studios on hands and knees, being the dog, which Tom Baker found enormously funny. Well, one might. But it actually got the relationship going between master and servant.
And there's no electronic trickery on the voice?
There was originally. Then they found the actor could do the job for himself. So I just did the voice, put it up a bit like that, and clipped it. They wanted to keep the idea of this wonderful creature having a little voice coming out of a tiny little elliptical speaker, such as you might find in something this size.
I think
all that
I think
information.
It's marvellous.
and
I would like to say thank you to the Doctor Who travelling show at Longleat, who loaned us that large K9 there, and also the Cyberman at the back of the audience here. Thank you for coming along here. Now, we've got some Star Trek fans also with us today, because we can't go through science fiction without mentioning Star Trek. Presumably you think you're a lot better than the Doctor Who fans?
No. Not necessarily. We're another branch of the same area of interest.
So you would admit to an interest in Doctor Who as well?
Oh, yes.
What exactly are you here? This character I can't remember from Star Trek.
This is from the Next Generation. It's a modern Klingon.
A modern Klingon?
Well, you see, in the motion pictures and then in the Next Generation, they went for the three-dimensional Klingon as opposed to a paint job. So we now have the wrinkled forehead.
Which is a Klingon itself, really, looking at it.
Well, this piece, we have the very short song, How Much Is That Klingon in the Window? The one with the crinkly head. How much is that Klingon in the window? I do wish that Klingon was dead.
Do you two travel around? I know you arrived together today. Are you actually related? Are you friends, or husband and wife, or what?
Yes, we're married.
Oh, you are married?
Yes.
Did you? I mean, where did you get married? Did you get married in a Star Trek convention, or?
Well, we met in a science fiction group. That's how we met, but we just got married perfectly normally.
Yes.
Really.
And the costumes you brought with you, these are yours. What do you do with them normally? Do you go to conventions with them?
Yes, we wear them at conventions.
Do you have any other friends involved in this at all?
Yes, we in fact run a local group north of London for Star Trek fans. So we meet once a month and watch videos, discuss the series and so forth.
So an all-consuming passion for science fiction, and particularly Star Trek?
Yes, certainly Star Trek, but also spaceflight as well. We're interested in the factual side of it as well as the fictional.
Well, that's good, because that takes us on towards part 2. Do join us after the break. We're going to investigate further this particular passion with those that both collect and create and, in fact, make a living from science fiction. That's next. Thank you. BSB's Now channel, A Particular Passion, part 2 of science fiction, and welcome back. Comics have always been an evocative slice of science fiction. I've got with me now two people who can enlighten us on the power of comics. Dennis Gifford, who has one of the largest private collections of early comics, and Neil Gaiman, who's both a writer of comics and novels. First, Dennis, let's see some of the early ones which you collect and you love so much.
Ah. It dated it. It was the future of 1963. And I don't think we're going to get further than the future of 1990 with anything being written or done right now.
Dennis, you would never hand us today, the Star Trek people, the Doctor Who fans, and the various ufologists, experts and writers we've had in. Certainly give us something to think about. Next week, I'll be back to find out about another particular passion, so do join us again then. Thank you very much.